welcome back to the Pro Series Podcast. This is episode 112, and today's guest is Harrison Tash. Harrison is the founder and lead consultant over at Living Water Consulting, which is a consulting firm for small businesses. They actually specialize in a lot of construction companies, helping them grow and make their companies grow bigger and better. We talk all about that, which is a really good topic for the interior design and construction world. So if you are a small company or just have a struggle with growing your company, this is the episode to listen to. But before we hop into the episode, please like, subscribe, and review this podcast on wherever you listen to podcasts. And now I hope you enjoy episode 112 with Harrison Tash. Harrison, thank you so much for hopping on the Pro Series Podcast today. Can't wait to talk to you about your expertise in your company.
Yeah, appreciate having me on, Eric. I'm excited for our discussion today and looking forward to what we dive into.
Yeah. Let's first dive into your business, and then we'll kind of get into how you kind of started it. Tell me a little bit about what you do and how you could help people.
Yeah, so what I do is I help companies, more of the service-oriented, construction-based type companies, help them scale and streamline their businesses, and I do that for multiple reasons. One, companies that are attached to the construction industry, a lot of times we find, whether you're a subcontractor or GC, we find them in this space where everything is coming down on the president or it's coming down on the leadership team. And it is it's a pain point for companies of how do we empower the middle level management? How do we empower and disperse cohesive teams? And so we work with these companies to help them cascade down those goals, those objectives, and really help them level up in their company. Whether you're going from 5 to 10 million, or if you're going from 30 to 60 employees, a lot of times what we do has to help, or it helps with companies in their growth stages and helping them do it better than what they could 5 years ago, what they could on their own. So we help them in that endeavor to make sure that they can get to that next step, that next level, without, ripping their hair out or hitting their heads against the wall.
Yeah, absolutely. So when you explain that, you could really help any entrepreneur that has a business. Why'd you pick construction to be like your niche for this business?
Yeah. So for us, the team that we have has a great deal of experience in the construction industry. So, backing up 15 years ago when I was kind of getting more integrated into the construction industry, I started out with a small construction company in HR and in safety. And then I slowly realized that there was a lot of construction companies that fit into this niche of they specialize in something, they do really good at what they do, but they weren't businessmen. And I had my master's in organizational leadership, and I had really delved into a lot of the business aspects of it at a young age. And so I started to be able to match my knowledge that I had of how businesses should interact with the economy and how they grow, and take that and match it with my experience of being able to witness a small construction company. And then later down the road, I got integrated into a very large regional general contractor who self-performed in masonry, self-performed in carpentry and labor. And I really realized that no matter how small or big you are, whether you're a $10 million company or you're a $500 million company, which that's the ranges that we typically work within, is somewhere in the small business, 5, 10 million to, the larger companies in the, $500 million range. And we try to stay away from the corporate construction companies that are all over and international. But in that range, I really saw that the same problems existed in the small to the medium-sized contractors. Those same problems existed, and I can list a few of those problems, some of them being that they didn't know how to really have a vision for their company. They didn't know how to take strategy and put it into an actual workable plan. They didn't know how to execute on that strategy because they were stuck in the whirlwind, and they didn't know how to develop and empower employees from the ground up. And so, those issues across the board had kind of propelled me into what I do today, and then building a team around it to help these contractors who, again, may not have experienced this before, didn't go to school for this. They just know what they know and
Hmm.
they do it well. And we also work with other companies like that are attached to construction. And so, that might be wholesalers, manufacturers, people that are attached to the construction industry. And so that's kind of the why the
Hmm.
niche is there. And I think it's one of the last industries left out there that has so much room to grow, whether it's technology. A shout out to Construction Technology Institute, great partners with me, and other platforms that are like that, whether it's technology or whether it's people development or strategy development, all these different categories. This is the
Oh,
industry
I
that needs it
agree.
the
I
most.
mean, I know so many contractors that, don't go to college. They start their business right out of high school and they're very successful because they're very good hands-on people. But once they start growing, they just don't know what to do because that's not their expertise. They'd rather be in the field doing the actual hard work, blue collar work stuff. So, I mean, that's a genius. And I thought that was going to be your answer when I asked you because I'm like, there's so many good contractors out there that fail because of this reason. They don't have this backing for them in the business world. What's the main characteristic that you see before or in your clients or before that you even get a client that you notice that maybe that they need help or maybe they don't know that they need help?
Yeah, that's good. Normally, people have something that
Yeah.
they know they need, right? If you don't, there could be some more mindset issues there, right? But normally there's something that
Hmm.
is there that they want to talk about. Some typical ones that I see today is succession planning, right? People that have grown businesses with their hands and they've built it to something that's sustainable. They're like, oh shoot, I'm going to be out of this business in 10 years. What do I do? Right? So succession planning is huge, and so in that endeavor, we try to help companies with the starting point, and we have a process put in place. We've helped companies that are very large, and we've helped companies that are very small, and everywhere in between with succession planning. Another one is just like strategy, like they know what they know, but they're not exactly sure how they put it into motion, or how do they take what they know and expand it and see if there's other diversifying ways for their company to sell services that they already have, whether expanding them or even getting into different territories or regions so that they can get that same product to other places. So that expansion and that strategy piece is huge for companies. Um, another thing that we see is leadership development. You have I mean, and that's a broad term, so I don't want to just say that and leave it out there, just that's what it is. But it's empowering that mid-level management to take on the things that your leadership team, or maybe it's just you as the president or owners that have taken on everything. It's empowering that middle level management to be able to take things and really empower them to try it, fail sometimes, and really pick up the pieces and learn it, and not do it in a way to where it costs the company money. So we see that too, is like, how do you shore up the middle level of your company so then it continues the cascade down to the boots on the ground, and you start creating leaders at the grounds level, so that they continue, you have a cycle that's
Hmm.
sustainable of growing leaders in your company. So those are some three areas that we see, and then the execution of all that. um, Here's what I see. We see these top-notch consultants come in and make great plans for people. And it's funny because a lot of times we pick up the pieces with, hey, we have all this stuff that we did and we put it all into a workable plan, but we don't know how to do this. Like, this is a lot to do. And that's where, a lot of times we'll come in, if we're starting fresh with you. It's like, hey, let's create focus areas of your company where we really want to dial down and understand exactly where we want to put the pressure on these levers of your company. And if you have someone come in and just say, hey, let's focus on these 17 areas, you're going to get overwhelmed. You're not going to have the resources. And so that's part of our specialties, is taking your lack of resources and learning how to expand them so that it's sustainable and not just something that, is you just put on paper and put on a shelf later, right? Like you
Yeah.
actually put it into a workable plan.
Yeah, I'm just going through my head and thinking of all these contractors I know, and I know some that have maybe like 5 to 10 people on their staff, all basically doing the contracting, the hard work of like the renovations of the homes or whatever they're doing, but they don't really have a business person. And if so, if a customer comes to you, when I say business person, someone like doing the books, doing the scheduling, all that stuff,
Sure.
are you are you consulting, if there's a company like that, are you consulting just the owner? Or are you trying to maybe push to hire someone in that company that you could be consulting for them, to help them out with the actual business end of the business? Because I feel like a lot of contractors that go into the business want to stay as a contractor, and sometimes they just don't want to do that whole the bookkeeping and all that stuff. What are you seeing out there?
Yeah, good question. And when you're talking about that, I view it as a lot of a mindset piece.
Yeah,
Like we work with the CEOs, the owners, the presidents. We work with them and their leadership teams.
gotcha.
So for sustainability, we've got to get your leadership team either built and then shored up, or we need to shore them up if they've already built
Hmm.
out, and be able to pour into them so that we can actually coach them to be the coaches of your company. And like if you ever thought about like this, like you can have the best athletes out there, right? What's a coach good for if you have this really talented athlete? Well, they're going to teach them how they should be thinking, and they're going to be the people that hold them accountable. And you can view us in the same way. We may not come in and we're not going to do all the work for you, but we're going to teach you how to run a company to
Hmm.
where you can sustainably hire the right people, or take the people in your company and give them the resources and empower them to run that company. And again, we try to push the right levers so that essentially it frees up that leadership team and the president, the owner, so that they have the time to actually keep their eyes ahead. If you think of it like a ship, once you get off course enough, it's really hard to get that ship back on the course.
Okay.
And so if you don't have the right eyes looking ahead at the economy, looking at what the innovative ways, the way people need to adapt, businesses need to adapt to the economy
Hmm.
and the expectations, man, you're going to miss a lot of stuff, and yet that ship's going to get off course. And so that's our job, is to teach you how to keep the ship on course and put the right tools and resources in your hands to empower the people to actually do the jobs that need to be in place in your company. And those are different across the board.
Oh yeah.
And I'll give you like a quick story. Like we had a smaller company. Let's just we'll call them innovative construction company, because they were doing all the right things, but their workload was just extremely heavy, and they just felt like they were chasing their tail. Well, when we did our assessment with them, we come in, we do an assessment. Typically, it's about a month long. We're interviewing your leadership team. We're interviewing the president, and we're always comparing what your team believes is the truth and what the owner believes is the truth. And just a little secret: 9 times out of 10, those don't match up
Mm.
perfectly. And so, coming into that business, one of the things that we learned was they were getting all the business they needed. So sales and the lead gen and being able to create the right relationships wasn't the problem. The problem is they didn't have a repeatable process and systems for the things that they were doing. And I would call this professionalizing your business, right? So, four main areas that we look at is, structure, people, systems, and processes. And we look at that and we say, okay, systems and processes is definitely your problem right now. You don't have a sustainable system in place to where from the moment you get work to the moment you execute on work, that all your employees know what to do when they encounter fill in the blank. And so we worked with them with literally just recording them doing their processes and then having their employees actually put it on paper. And what we found was is that we found a more consistency in their work. And actually, it's hard to put numbers on this stuff, but we would say somewhere around 20% efficiency rate between about 3 months span, just because they put all their processes on paper. And I say their main processes, between their finances, between their operations, and between their sales and marketing. We put all that stuff into a process, and we were able to see how that process and having it on paper and having some actual training videos on it was repeatable. They could hire and get people onboarded faster, and people knew exactly what they were supposed to do. And one other thing we did with that is we did the top three responsibilities for everyone in the company, and it just created such clarity of they own this, that's what they do. And then once they knew what they were supposed to do, they had processes in place that they would teach their teams to do. So that's a quick example to show it takes time.
Yeah.
But in 90 days, you could have a turnaround pretty quick.
Oh yeah, you just need someone. Even the healthiest of companies, it's smart to have an outsider come in and just analyze everything. It's almost like I like your analogy with an athlete and a coach, but also like a nutritionist type of deal. You just need someone to look over your life and implement some new things. They're not the actual ones putting the food in your body, but they're telling you what to do to better your health. And it's just the same exact way. Are you getting clients that are also maybe they do have a very healthy company that they just want you to come in and just analyze stuff, and you probably find something that they don't even know, and they probably can make more money off of? Has that happened?
Yeah, and we work with a selective number of clients, because obviously we want to pour in the right resources and be there for them. And one of the clients that we've been working with over the last 2 years, they're one of the best ran small companies that we know, and I'll name them on here because they're awesome company. Dancer Concrete Design. They're out of Fort Wayne, Indiana. They're doing it right. And as a small company, they're doing it right. They're doing really good stuff. And I just had a conversation with the president just today, and I'm like, hey, listen, you're doing really, really well. Like, I want to talk about, do we do work next year together? Because I don't want you to waste your money, and we want to make sure that it's sustainable in a way that, you feel like you're good on your own. And he goes, you're right. We could do this without you. But your perspective and just the relationships that you have within our company, like, you're able to challenge us in a way that, even if it's not, if we don't take you up on that challenge, if you will, even if we don't take you up on the challenge, it creates such good conversations that if we didn't have that perspective, we would just pat ourselves on the back and keep going.
Yeah.
Right. And so there's other companies, even at a larger scale. We work with Wygan Construction, who's a great company out of Fort Wayne, Indiana, general contractor, and they're doing amazing. But we help bring clarity and focus to how they, not only create their strategy, but also how they execute their strategy. And so, yeah, to answer your question, absolutely. There are some companies who are doing so good. They're doing well in their market, but to have another perspective, it just helps them make them look that much better and execute that much better with that kind of perspective.
Yeah, that was actually going to be my next question on how long do you actually do this? Because I'm guessing, like, even if someone just going to a doctor's, they think, or maybe physical therapy, you go to physical therapy for, only so many months because it's covered by insurance. But if you did it longer, it would benefit you longer. And that was going to be my question. How long do you stick with a client? And you basically stick with it until you think that they're ready to fly on their own. And then do you come back to them as, like, maybe check-ins?
Yeah, good question. So there's two sides of our business. We run an online side and we run an in-person side. Our online side obviously is to have better reach, right? So that we can diversify ourselves, and it only helps our in-person clients as well. But in our in-person work, we have multiple varieties of work that we do. We do more of the long-term partnership because the company needs somebody in there to really help them do that. But we also have, like, our org assessments that we talked about earlier coming in, assessing the company, giving them reports. That's more of a short-term basis. That could be 1 to 2 months. And then our long-term is typically by year. So, we come in, help create a plan of where we want to go. And we obviously start with the immediate needs, and then we work for more of the long-term needs. And 9 times out of 10, we're on repeat business because they'll go into the second year. And on the online portion, it could be 6-week courses. Right now, just a hint for the listeners. Right now, mid October, we'll have a online course going, and it's going to be all about how to automate your business development and sales in your service oriented companies, because we all know unless you have someone out there knocking on doors, making those handshakes and creating relationships on social media and all that stuff, unless you have that, you're probably going to put that on the back burner when it gets to peak season. And so we're helping smaller to medium sized businesses be able to create an automated business development and sales funnel to where even during peak seasons, they still have automated messaging going out, helping create those relationships and keeping up with that stuff. So we have a 6-week course on that. We'll run 6-week courses on how to do your strategic planning. So we do those things to really give resources to contractors and people that are connected to the construction industry.
You'll tell your client that's outside of the Fort Wayne area. Okay.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, we're working with we'll work with Fort Wayne and surrounding, and we'll even we've gone to Chicago, New York. We'll go to those places as well. But the online is definitely the answer for that. To kind of get we run the more long term online where we provide those resources, teach the way to run a business, get your teams involved online with strategic planning and helping execute those things and leadership coaching, but also short term type things online as well. And so our reach is way greater that way, and it helps us understand the market better.
So for someone that is a smaller company, say maybe 5 to 25 employees, and you see them, what is their most, how do I ask this? The most common mistake that you see in those smaller companies, or the most common issue that those smaller companies are coming to you for?
Yeah, that's a good question, and I think it definitely varies across the board. But when you say that, 5 to 10 million, is that the ones that you stated, 5 to 10 million
5
range?
to 50 or so employees.
Okay. Yeah, I think it can definitely vary. It really depends on the
Yeah.
leadership of that company. But one of the things that we just mentioned, like not keeping up with relationships, not keeping a consistent way to be able to do your business development and to be able to create those relationships with your partners, is huge. So like if you're a subcontractor, one of the things that we see being left on the table all the time is, are you going to the general contractors? Are you creating the right relationships? Because, you know, if they're not, if you're working for a general contractor who's only
Hmm.
doing hard bids, I would say you're 10 years behind. You need to be working with general contractors who are in the negotiated bid world, who are creating relationships because they understand the value of relationships. So it could be as simple as pulling that lever on your business of saying, let's focus on some of these general contractors that we know are creating relationships so that you can be part of that relationship with them, and it's
Hmm.
more sustainable versus just always going after these hard bids. And it's like, wham, bam, thank you, ma'am. Now you can bid on the next one. And if you make it, you make it. If not, then
Yeah.
forget it. So that's one example. Another one is
Oh,
technology.
okay.
I mean,
Hmm.
again, I mentioned Construction Technology Institute earlier. It's a huge platform. They got a lot of clout behind their name. They're doing a great job of bringing awareness to the industry. And I've partnered with them on some of this, building out this information, but also getting this information to the industry. But if you're not automating and creating efficiencies within your business with technology, you're already behind, and you've got to figure it out, because if you don't, you may not be
Oh,
around the
yeah.
next 10 years, right? So that's a huge one. And then another one that we see across the board, I mentioned earlier, which is succession planning. Just being able to plan for the future to where your company can actually turn over. And a lot of people have heard the phrase of like, hey, is your business a sellable business? Can you sell your business right now? And if you can't, you're just making money. Like, that's great. You can make money, but can you sell it?
Hmm.
And so, we're always working towards companies that can actually sell themselves. Like, it's an actual, on paper, you could look at it and say, that's worth a lot of money. It's definitely worth paying for. If you think about it, there's a ton of companies out there that can make
Yeah.
$1 million a year, and it's not actually sustainable. It all depends on one person doing their job well. So
Yeah.
how do you make it more sustainable? So those are some things across the board that you
Oh
can
yeah. I'm
see
sure
in
anybody that's
that.
listening knows a company or they are a company that have those mistakes or those issues. But sometimes, the owners don't know that's an issue, especially with the technology part of it. Like maybe if they've been in the business for, 30 to 40 years and that technology wasn't there in the beginning, it's again, like what you said in the beginning, mindset, and trying to get their mindset right in figuring out how to get them into that technology and get them rolling into the, 2023.
Yeah, absolutely. And a lot of times it's not their
Yeah.
fault. It's
No.
that, like we said earlier, they're running a business and they're doing it well, but in that you lose a little bit of
Yeah.
innovativeness, right? Like you start to forget about like, hey, what do I need to do to stay around for
Yeah.
another 10 years? You just really do the business really well, and you
Yeah,
just keep
or
going.
years of just being so busy, you just don't have time to look into the newest technologies and what other competitors are doing because you're just always on the grind.
Yeah, absolutely. And it is interesting is like, with construction, obviously with everything else, it
Yeah.
follows the market, peaks, highs and lows. It's I normally see companies will focus on these kind of things at the lowest peak. So like at the no, I shouldn't say the lowest
Yeah.
peak, but at the lowest valleys, right? They focus on, let's be innovative, let's figure out what we need to do. By then,
Mm.
it's almost too late, you know, because when you're at the lowest point, it's hard to allocate resources
Yeah.
if it costs money, right? So when you're doing really well, you should figure out how to make these changes at your peak seasons because you'll have more resources and more, whether that's money or people, you'll have those resources to pour into it. And you got to figure out how to do that well because on paper, you're like, yeah, we wouldn't be able to implement this right now anyways because
Yeah.
we're too busy. Well, you have to figure out a way. And normally, the biggest problem is just commitment. Are you
Mhm.
committed to do it or not? Right?
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, we could probably talk about this all day, but I want to finish off on where people could contact you, and where people could follow you on maybe social media or wherever you're on.
Yeah, appreciate you asking that. So we are on LinkedIn. So if you go to LinkedIn and you type in Harrison Tash, Fort Wayne, Indiana, you'll be able to find me there. I would love to connect with you. And then if you go to consultlivingwater.com, go to our contact us page. Just put in your information, and we have a team that'll reach out to you within a day. And yeah, you can do that, or you can email me directly. Now I have other people that manage email with me, but it will be directly to me in one way or another. You can go to harrisontash@consultlivingwater.com.
Yeah, and I'll have all that in the description of the podcast and on social media. But Harrison, thank you so much for hopping on the podcast and talking your company. I enjoyed this, and I hope it helps out many listeners out there and their business, and maybe even get some clients off of it.
Yeah, man. Hey, Eric, I really appreciate you having me on. And one more thing for the listening audience. We
Yeah,
we talked a lot about these issues and some of the great things that come with business. I would just challenge the listening audience, like, think about some of the things that we talked about on this podcast. Think about those things, and even if you just want to have a quick conversation with me, I would love to hear some of your challenges that you're having. We have group calls with companies every week, Wednesday and Thursday. And so if you want to be on one of those, reach out to me. I'll throw you in there, connect you with some great people who are probably going through the same issues that you are. If you're listening and you hear this, Wednesdays and Thursdays at 2 o'clock Eastern time, you can hop in on a group call. Would love to have you in there. And we talk to all sorts of people in the industry and we love creating those connections. So if you'd love to hop in one of those, or you want to contact us directly, take us up on it, because we really want to hear what's going on and be able to use that data to help other people in the industry.
That's awesome. Well, thank you for that, and thank you for hopping on. I hope let's stay connected, and can't wait to get this
All
out.
right. Well, thank you, Eric, and appreciate your willingness to help people in the industry.